Jesus, stuff will just not stop happening, will it? I mean, hey, I'm grateful for all the pre-recorded content I can get for Wednesday, or today for you, as it is one of those days in which Arch is forced to leave his domicile and interface with the rest of the world. He does, of course, hate this, but occasionally the bureaucracy of lesser men enforces its will upon even the best of us. Anywho, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. Destiny is apparently being kicked off Kick, which I gotta admit, that was not something I expected to say. If anything, I would have expected him to get yeeted off, YouTube first, considering that platform's interesting TOS on off-platform behavior, and Kick's more or less absence of a TOS last time I checked, but details. So, first and foremost, is this actually real? Well, he's got the Kick link in his X profile, so okay, well, there you go, 404. Oops, something went wrong. We can't find the page you are looking for. Okay, let's quick refresh just in case. Nope, nothing there. Right, so bear you in mind, there could be other explanations for this, and it could be back up in an hour, or 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, etc. It could be a server problem, or an administrative problem, or an overeager intern, etc. But, considering just how ballistic Destiny has been going, getting banned is probably the easier explanation, as, well, this has been an interesting 96 odd hours since the assassination attempt, with, well, it was already going quite downhill for the progressives, wasn't it? CNN purging their race and equity team, Microsoft firing its DEI team, John Deere joined in on this just a few hours ago, stating that they will no longer participate in or support external social or cultural awareness parades, festivals, or events, etc. The progressive house of cards appears to be collapsing in real time before our very eyes at a truly astonishing speed. But we're going to talk more specifically about this thing here and about Kick. See, this is a free speech question, isn't it? Because in an ideal society, Destiny, like everybody else, should be allowed to say whatever they want, no matter how vile. With certain limitations, of course, on things like threats or things that might actually endanger people, as every rule has an exception. There we go. But ideally speaking, free speech should be as close to absolute as possible. And Kick was one of the platforms who marketed itself as a free speech platform, attracting a lot of my kind of people, which is why I have a tiny little Twitch account of my very own. But here's the thing. That is, in a perfect world. It is not the world in which we currently live. The world in which we currently live, which I've talked about now a couple of times in previous episodes, is one in which the left, the progressives, the wokeists, have dictated the terms of cultural exchanges and communication online. It has wielded cancel culture as a weapon against countless people, up to and including ruining people's entire lives, their jobs, their workplace relationships, their livelihoods, monetization on social media, etc. And here's the thing, even if my style of people got in power like that tomorrow and was like, okay, we're just gonna forgive and forget everything, even in that extraordinarily unlikely scenario, dismantling all of the things that limit free speech, all of the overreaching terms of services on platforms like X or on YouTube, etc., that ain't gonna happen tomorrow. That ain't gonna happen next week or next month. That is a process that took years to put in place, and it will take years to dismantle. And up until then, well, this is what the leftists do not understand, which I talked about in previous videos as well. The left has created a situation in which it was the only one wielding the stick, and it grew so comfortable with wielding the stick that it didn't even see anything morally wrong with it. And even as people were like, okay, and this was the argument like 8 years ago, you shouldn't wield the stick because one day the stick will be taken away from you, and the new person holding it is probably not going to be very charitably inclined towards you, and hello. It is indeed the consequences of your actions. As it is now rapidly happening. These warnings were of course ignored, as the left figured it would never fall out of institutional power, and now it has happened so unbelievably quickly over the course of days that Destiny would have figured that he would never lose advertiser access for the shit he said. The average leftist has been used to saying a hell of a lot worse against a hell of a lot more people and threatening them with quite a few things more strident, with no consequences. For the longest time, the terms of service on YouTube has cut one way exclusively, and bear you in mind as well here, YouTube's terms of service claims that it can investigate behavior on other platforms as well. This is one of the reasons why my friend Sargon got demonetized. It's the reason why Count Dankula, who was suffering through yellow piss stains of demonetization until Ethan Klein called up the then YouTube CEO and set things straight. For my side of things, you can absolutely be cancelled on YouTube for something you do somewhere else, and the bar was significantly lower. But the left, again, it hasn't realized this yet, that the boot is now on the other foot. I do suspect Destiny is going to be a very, very large warning to the rest of them, and the question then becomes, is this moral? Is this good? Because after all, if my position is free speech absolutism, how can I then sit here and cheer on the destruction of somebody else for what they said? Well, I'm not necessarily cheering, although I did end a video was that there? Yeah, a couple of them. By saying that I would like to see the consequences that had so often been enforced upon the right also now be enforced upon the left for a few years. Why? Because again, it is the only way they will learn. Right now, we are in a situation where the left has far more institutional power than the right, or at least had, and they have wielded it with not a shred of kindness, dignity, or grace. Well, I see no particular reason why the right, now so very thoroughly in the ascendancy, should not look upon its opposition and ask, why should I treat you any differently than you treated me? And if their only answer is, well, I acted like a monster because those were my principles, and now I expect you to treat me nicely because that's your principles, I don't think that's going to fly. And that's literally just a realistic interpretation of things. As, again, even if all of the rules, all of the terms of services could be reversed, it isn't going to happen tomorrow, or the day after, or the day after that, even if there is the will to do so. Is that moral then? You know what? I think so. Turnabout is fair play. And here's the thing as well. I would still like to see a situation in which we all have free speech. That should still be the goal of all of this. But in a more divided system than ever, you cannot expect the one side that has been victimized and plagued for the last 10 years to somehow forgive and forget overnight. It's not going to happen. In all due likelihood, this is going to escalate a lot more, as now, bear in mind, Kick is a fairly conservative-friendly platform, which is probably why it did this. But a lot of platforms that are PR-minded is going to see what is in essence the right-wing's George Floyd moment, without any burnt-down cities either, mind you. And what did all of those corporations do then? That's right, they threw money at the left-wing purposes. They started banning people who spoke out against St. George of Floyd. Now, this isn't going to be quite that, because the right doesn't have that much institutional power just yet, but I'd also like to point out a little example here that a lot of people have brought up. When Alex Jones went too far, he was slapped with $1 billion fine. Or lawsuit, more correctly. There are a lot of people right now saying stuff as bad, if not worse, than what Alex Jones did. And I imagine that Alex Jones, being a kind and generous soul, would urge many of these peoples to perhaps look into his own legal trials and tribulations and see if there aren't some similarities in their words and actions to his. Perhaps there might be a warning there somewhere. Who knows? So, in principle, I don't like this. It is the kind of cancel culture that I have spoken out against many, many times. In more practical terms, it is unavoidable and it is going to absolutely happen. There is going to be a period of, well, right-wing tyranny to equal that of the left wing. This is simply the pendulum swinging. The only question is how far we are going to allow it to swing again. As just like with the markets, there is going to be a period of crazed paranoia after any major change in power. The, again, extent of the swing is the biggest question, as preferably, I would like it if we could arrive at a equilibrium as quickly as possible. If we could get from now back to the 2000s in, say, 2 or 3 years, rather than the 10 it took to get here, that would be lovely. And if we could also not then continue in that direction for a while, that would be great too. But, I'm also not going to sit here and pretend as if I am particularly shocked or feel particularly sorry either for Destiny or anyone else who is probably going to be hit by the very same terms of service that they so very much benefited from previously. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.